When you think of superheroes, the first hero you probably immediately think of is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. From comics, to cartoons, to movies, to video games, and a bunch of other stuff. Spider-Man is one of the best superheroes of all time, and there are of course millions of fans, and sometimes fans would make fan projects of their favorite franchises, like that mini Star Wars Darth Maul fan film, which was actually pretty cool. Same thing with Spider-Man, there's actually been a few small fan films on YouTube. But the most recent one is Spider-Man Lotus, where at the start of production, fans helped fund this fan film directed by Gavin J. Konop with an estimated $125,000 budget. At first, things were going good, but then there were leaks from the director and the actors playing Spider-Man and Green Goblin. Apparently these guys have been sending racist messages. They have apologized online, but because of the leaks it started getting backlash during production, and even so the VFX team quit. Not just because of the backlash, but also just because they also got stressful hours as well. And now that the film is out, of course people have stated that the film sucked. Now I don't know if it's just because of the drama or just the film itself is bad. So being the fair dude I am towards movies, even so I've been making movie review videos. While everyone was saying that The Flash was bad, I personally liked it, and that had problems behind the scenes. So without further ado, I'm gonna watch this movie and I'll come back to you guys in a bit. Spider-Man Lotus is officially the worst movie I have ever seen. Spider-Man Lotus is a movie that shows Peter Parker and his friends grieving over Gwen Stacy's death that Spider-Man blames himself for. If you think there's more to it than that, you would be so wrong. There is absolutely nothing this movie has to offer. The only thing going on is grieving, emotional outbursts, flashbacks, and memories for the sake of grieving and being depressed. Now there are ways to showcase the grieving Spider-Man, but we'll get to that later. But is there anything I sort of like from this movie? I could say the summer score if they didn't overuse it for every single scene. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. It honestly feels like the same song is being used over and over again. As for the CGI, I don't want to be too harsh because there was only a budget that Blood and Honey had to work with, but the CGI looks like it came out of a video game. I'm gonna be honest, the car could have been practically shot with a real car instead of just CGI. The first scene, Shocker vs. Spider-Man, is a scene, if anything the only scene, that I actually sort of like because it's the only swayed action scene in this entire movie. The only other actual swayed good Spider-Man scene we have is him swinging around for like 20 seconds at the end of the movie. This movie not only has nothing to offer, but there is a lot of wasted potential once you think about it. The first half is just everyone grieving and moping around because they lost someone. Now that's not that it's a problem, but it's dragged out for so long. Scenes could have been cut down or just could have been executed better. I was already recognizing that problem in the beginning, but I was hopeful that it could later on be the reason to drive the story forward and give us a fine, if not just a decent Spider-Man movie. But no. The only other thing this movie has is Spider-Man talking to this terminally ill kid who probably has better acting than everyone else in this movie. I'll get to that part later, but right now I have to explain how Gwen died and everything. One night, Peter is like to hang out with his friends, and when they leave together, it sets up that Peter would have proposed to Gwen the next day. But it turns out she died because apparently, with the best assumption, Goblin killed her. And Spider-Man blames himself for not being able to save her. Technically, there is a scene where Spider-Man and Goblin fight. It's a flashback that occurs after Gwen's death, and Spider-Man is just pretty mad. If anything, he just leaves Goblin in a burning building all beaten up. So while Gwen dies, so does Norman Osborn, aka Goblin. So not only is Harry grieving over Gwen, but his dad too. The only dramatic thing that occurs besides the grieving is that apparently Harry didn't show up to Gwen's funeral, so Peter and Mary are a bit mad at him for that. But at least they make up toward the end of the freaking movie! And speaking of Mary Jane, if not, she's the worst character in this entire movie. Why? Because if anything, she's characterized like the Sam Raimi Mary Jane. Little brat. She's characterized like she wants to help, but it kind of looks like she's selfish and only worries about herself. It's like Peter and Harry realized that she was a jerk because she's kind of the emotional punching bag for the whole movie. Now that I think about it, there's actually a lot of Sam Raimi Spider-Man stuff in here. I probably shouldn't say this because it's an unfair comparison, but if you saw my Transformers movie series review, you would have known that I was disappointed by The Last Knight. The first time I was ever disappointed in a movie. But at least it had a story to tell, and action scenes. If not, everything was just a hot mess with awful execution. But Spider-Man Lotus doesn't have a story. If anything, it lacks creativity. pulling stuff out of Spider-Man media, if anything, the movies and the comics, and thinking they could get away with it. And there's one thing they tried using as a crutch: the terminally ill kid. Spider-Man gets a letter from the kid's mom that her son is a huge fan who looks up to him and hopes to meet him before he dies. So after the halfway point of the movie, Spider-Man visits the kid, and this kid is jolted with joy to see him. She shows all the Spidey stuff he's collected, all Daily Bugle newspapers, figurines.
I think this one is my favorite. Wait, actually, not that one.
Hey, wait, I actually had that one. And a scrapbook of all the pictures of all the villains he's fought. And Spider-Man still being depressed, he just questions how this kid isn't a big fan of other heroes like Thor and stuff like that. Which apparently the Avengers are in universe. That and the scrapbook of all the villains he fought are examples of wasted and missed potential. It would have been awesome to have flashbacks of him fighting all his villains, even if they were just short bits. But in universe, the classic show, the comics, the toys, and everything, are they just stuff that fans made in that universe? But the reason why I bring up the kid is because Spider-Man tells him why he's not the hero he thinks he is, and he's the wrong person to look up to. And then he tells him how his uncle died. If anything, it's just the same way how Uncle Ben died in the first Spider-Man movie. But even after all of that, the kid does give him some hope and dies the next day. But at least Spider-Man feels alive again, and the movie ends. You know, this movie just kind of sucks. Okay, one last thing I want to point out: the unoriginality of Gwen dying and wasted creative decision making. We've seen a Spider-Man movie where Gwen dies. Sure, Peter would grieve, but soon would get back up on his feet, ready to fight crime. A way to show a grieving Spider-Man, that is. And honestly, I think the best example is from Spider-Man No Way Home. Goblin killed Aunt May, and so Peter 1 understandably feels like he wants to kill him. But then Peter 2 and 3 show up and tell them why that's a bad idea. Peter 3 tells him how after Gwen died, he got all bitter and started to not pull back his punches. And since I don't know if we're ever getting an Amazing Spider-Man 3 movie, why not just do that? This film started getting funded in 2022. It wouldn't be too late to make a decision to visualize the bitterness of a grieving Spider-Man. Throughout the movie, it could have been perfect for there to show people doing crimes, robbing people and stuff, and Spider-Man being the one to obviously having to stop them. It could show through an action sequence that Spider-Man is releasing his anger towards his enemies and just brutally knocking them out. It could add a little depth, if not could add something to be entertaining, besides soaking around the whole time. But I guess that's supposed to fit the name of Spider-Man Lotus. I don't even think anyone knows what Lotus means, so I should probably say something. In Greek mythology, a lotus is a flower having an unwillingness to depart. So the only analogy I can give is the characters and Spider-Man are the flowers, and the unwillingness to depart is being unable to let go of Gwen's death. This would be good if it was just maybe for the first 30 minutes, and like I said, it could help drive out a story where Spider-Man could fight this big bad in the movie while still getting over the loss. I think that would make a decent film. Instead, it takes the Lotus meaning over the max since everyone is just being all emo for the sake of depression.
I still see your shadows in my room. Can't take back the love that I gave you. It's to the point why I love and I hate you, and I cannot change you, so I must replace you.
I'm gonna be honest, if this were to be a TV show, I could see this movie as a 1-hour pilot to help set up the show. I think that would be fine as well, but unlike the last night, I'm not entirely disappointed. I'm more or less just kind of angry and a little bitter. But here's the thing, everything in the film is everything the director intended to make. Spider-Man grieving over Gwen, finding closure, then regaining hope again. The director said it wasn't supposed to be an action movie where there'd be a big bad villain. So basically what I'm trying to say is maybe this movie isn't for me. Because in the comments for the fan film, there are people who said they actually liked it. But there are still people that have the same opinion as me. So this movie may not be for everyone, including me. Maybe some people are interested in this take of Spider-Man. I generally don't recommend watching this movie. If anything, just watch the actual Spider-Man movies or watch any other Spider-Man fan film. But if you are interested in the director's take, you do you. But don't say I didn't warn you. I'll just give this movie a simple 1 out of 10. Just a waste of my time. Time that I wish I just got back and just could have played Fortnite or something. Yeah, this movie sucked.